Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, Phil Spencer promises a future in which Mario can meet, I don't know, the guy from Fable, I guess? Go up the mountain ahead, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes up with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including the Game Award nominations coming out, and then on Thursday, we're celebrating how many years of Amiibo? 10 years of Amiibo. But Mark, in the meantime, how's it going?
It's going great. It is kind of crazy to think that Amiibo was a scant 2 years old when this show started.
Yeah, we didn't know like what we had.
No.
We didn't know how long it would last.
We're talking about Amiibo and the show.
Both
things.
That's true.
It's all true.
That's true. And we had no idea that we were on the precipice of like a console generation that was going to be almost a decade long as well.
Right. Yeah.
Everything's just getting stretched out now.
Yep. But we'll see what happens. Maybe when this new console generation,
right?
Well, for Nintendo kicks off, maybe it'll be like a rubber band. It'll just like snap. It'll be so fast.
And then everything goes real fast.
Like
when a rubber band snaps.
Exactly.
Do you think it's possible that when they reveal the Switch 2, like the new thing, it's just like a new line of Amiibo?
I don't, but that would be really fun.
It would be
in a way.
It would be
of
really
a sort.
Good.
It'd be fun of a
sort. It would be really fun.
If they're like, they're Amiibo, but they're big now.
But it's Amiibo, but they're really big now. They're like 300 pounds.
Yeah.
They're made of stone.
This is what we decided to do. To continue our mission of bringing smiles to people around the world, we decided to make these Amiibo monuments.
Yeah, I love this. And, like, will it decimate game fans with shipping costs? Sure.
And boy, will you have dodged a bullet.
I will have dodged a bullet.
By not committing to buy everything that Nintendo puts out in 2025.
Although I got to say, at this point, looking ahead to 2025, I promise to buy any stone statues that Nintendo puts out for the mass market.
Wow, really flirting with disaster
here. It's got to be something that's available.
I hope you got Sarah to co-sign this before you make this announcement.
I didn't tell her about the last one until like March. Oh, what are we doing? If you would like to support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where if you are supporting us at the 8 or 16-bit levels, you get access to our once-a-month episodes of miniseries like NCS Arcade.
Yes, where Patrick and I are playing games we've never beaten before.
Yes.
And we just released an episode on Echo the Dolphin for the Sega Genesis, and we are...
A game neither of us beat.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That remains on the never beaten list.
Yes.
Along with Jet Force Gemini.
That's right. So those are coming back for season 3. That's not true.
We would both quit.
Yeah.
And in just a few weeks,
yes,
Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga will be up. I'm playing it on Nintendo Switch Online. And it's in its original Game Boy Advance flavor. Patrick is playing the Nintendo 3DS remake. And I'm looking forward to talking about it.
I'm also looking forward to talking about it. I have things to say right now. It's a longer game, right? It's not long, but like we've both been playing it for a little while now, and so I have things to say. They're building up. I feel I've got pent up Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga thoughts.
Yeah, definitely.
So get in there. We will, of course, be doing our listener feedback episode about Superstar Saga shortly thereafter, where anyone who follows us on Patreon, whether you are giving money to us or not, so if you have questions, thoughts about Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, or any of the Mario and Luigi games, email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, and we will include them in that episode, which again, you don't have to pay to listen to.
Yeah, anybody can follow us on Patreon for free.
Yep. And speaking of things you can do for free, also by emailing us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, is join our Discord. People are in the Discord talking about what's going on in the world of Nintendo. Do we expect it to be kind of quiet from now until the end of the year in terms of Nintendo news?
Yeah. Yeah, we
do.
do.
We do. We expect that. Can we generate some news of our own? Some introspection about what's going on or not going on?
Oh,
in the Discord?
yeah. No, I like this. When the world is bereft of Nintendo news, let us turn inward for our own Nintendo analysis.
That's right. We can say, you know what I never gave a fair shake to? Yoshi's Touch and Go. We can really take that in.
Yeah, that's right. Really just like sit in it while the
Right.
news is slow.
Be like Donkey Kong King of Swing. Secret genius? We don't know.
Did you play Yoshi Touch and Go?
No.
That was the Nintendo DS one,
Yeah,
right? It
that's
was like launch title-ish. I did own it.
Yeah, well, and it was really small, right? Like it was a short experience or
Yeah.
like a borderline endless runner.
Yeah, exactly. It was more, it was definitely more of an arcade experience where the goal of it was high score chasing.
Right. Did you ever play the King of Swing or the other one, Jungle Climber or whatever it's called?
No, I didn't.
These are games that are like Clue Land likes, in that you are controlling two of Donkey Kong's hands as he like spins around on pegs, much like the thing in Clue Land whose name I can never remember.
Bubbles?
Might be Bubbles. That feels right.
I think that might be right.
And of course, we all know that Clue Land is in fact on Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah,
we know this. Obviously.
We know this.
All right, Mark. Let's get into what we've been playing this week. To the extent that we can talk about anything we've been playing.
Right. Well, I have a confession to make. So I have Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga written down here as the thing I've been playing this week. But I'm sad to say I actually did not have any time for video games this past week. So other than Pikmin Bloom, I didn't really play anything. Like I have Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake downloaded on my Switch, but I didn't boot that up either. So
you should boot it up and at least do the like personality test at the beginning. Just because I want to see what it says about you. Because I can say that it like hurt me deeply in its analysis of my personality.
That's really funny.
Because it told me I was a sore loser. And like that's like my personality type in Dragon Quest now. But it said that I want to be the center of attention, but it embarrasses me that that's what I want.
Oh.
And it's like, first of all, yes. But second of all, how dare you?
How funny. What kind of questions is it asking?
It's like just like little like if you're in this situation, what do you do?
Oh my gosh, do you know what that sounds like? Is
Scientology.
Did you ever work at like when I used to work at Borders bookstore?
Okay, yes.
When I was like in college, when you were applying for Borders, you took this online and I think businesses still administer it, but basically it's like asking questions like, what would you do in this scenario? What would you do if a coworker was stealing? Like that sort of thing. And the tests are, or at least my brother who does hiring now for a company that uses them, tells me that the tests are like calibrated in a way that they can tell when you are just answering because that's what you think that they want to hear.
No, come on.
That's what
but like, how are you actually supposed to answer
I know,
them?
yeah. But anyways, when you were saying that Dragon Quest 3 is asking you those sorts of scenario, that's what my mind flashed to.
So I definitely took that kind of test on when I was applying for Hollywood Video, which we've spoken about on this podcast before. But I remember it being on like a weird little computer terminal that was like not a computer. It was like a separate little machine that was like tucked away in the office somewhere. They had to like pull out the job application special box that I like punched my answers into.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, by the time when I took it for Borders, it was online, just like as part of like the application.
Well,
I think
Borders is very advanced.
No, but that can't be true because I don't think my Borders application was online. I think it was you know, like writing it on
a piece of paper.
Did
you go into the Borders and ask for an application?
I must have.
Wow.
I must have.
Because that's what I did at Hollywood Video.
Yeah. Because this was like the early.
so
This was like
old.
2000.
We're so old.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, all of this is to say that Juliet in the Discord was also saying that
Yes, it
she was not.
savaged her.
Yes, and so it makes me wonder if that's just the deal with it. Like, no matter what you enter.
I don't think so, because whatever you do at the end, that it gives you a personality type, and I know some of the personality types are like hero,
Well, listeners,
brave warrior.
write in if you've taken this quiz, because
Yes,
I want to
we
hear
need to
what the
know.
options are. But yeah, other than Pikmin Bloom and just getting those steps and flowers in, I really didn't have too much time for games this week, unfortunately.
How you doing in Pikmin Bloom? I finished all of the challenges for this month.
Oh, nice.
And you know, it's the 18th, so
Yeah.
like I feel like I knocked them out early.
That is really good.
this
No, I usually it's rare that I will be able to completely finish. I'm just pulling it up right now
I usually don't.
to see where I'm at. But I'm on one that I have to plant like 2,000 flowers. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yellow clematis, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lemon clamato. Yeah.
So I'm on stage 4. I need to plant 2,000 of them. And
And you just don't have the.
no,
the
I think I
petals?
have them. I just haven't gone for a walk
The
in
thing
order
is-
to do it.
So like I feel like I'm almost always like skating right up against those limits, and I hit like some hard limit where I'm like, you know, 30 short of completing it. But this month there was something that happened, and we got like awarded extra relevant petals.
Oh.
That like I think just made it easier to complete the challenges this month.
Wait, was that the thing where they apologized for,
They apologized for
some
something.
sort of outage,
Right.
and then they sent a bunch of flowers for that?
Yeah.
Oh, uh-huh.
So I hope there's a little outage every month
yes.
so I can complete them.
Oh, how blessed we would be.
I guess the only other thing I want to touch on is that I played a little bit of Super Mario Party Jamboree at Connor's birthday party on Sunday. Brought my Switch over to Jeremy's house where the party was. And I played one like full game of Mario Party with some people in the sort of back room of this party, while other people were playing Guitar Hero in the front room.
Rock
And
Band.
Rock Band, sorry. And we were having fun playing Mario Party, but the like drop in, drop out, immediately satisfying gameplay loop of Guitar Hero is so much more fun than Mario Party is in any iteration or configuration. Later in the party, you know, we played the one round of Mario Party, and then like put it down for a little while, came back and tried to just do like the just mini games thing, but like and there was a little bit more like handing controllers around, but even that, like, it's a little too slow, it's a little too like people have to like wrap their head around like, how do you play this one, which one am I, you know, all this kind of stuff, that like it's just not quite as fast and effortlessly fun when something like Rock Band is in the other
Yeah,
room.
it's just hard to beat Rock Band for, like you said, that kind of drop in multiplayer and
Everyone
like a
gets it right
party
away,
environment. Yeah.
And you know, where it's like something fun that everyone wants to see or hear, or like, you know, when people are playing a song in Rock Band and you know the song, you can kind of like sing along elsewhere in the
Mhm.
room, you know, like and it's like Mario Party just has like no equivalent thing like that.
Yeah, totally.
I wish somehow Nintendo could crack a genuine party game where like it's a loud environment and like people are dropping in, dropping out, and just immediately understand it. And it's not like everybody 1-2 switch or whatever, and it's not like Mario Party, just like something quicker and faster and more immediately fun.
Yeah, that would be cool.
But I don't know what that is. So, all right, Mark, that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
Okay, before we get into games,
Right.
since the Nintendo Music app has been released,
Yes.
every Monday
Yes.
in the US, like, they have added a new game soundtrack to the app.
Yes. Every Monday between 5 and 6 p.m. Pacific time.
This week, they added F-Zero X.
Right. And this is the third week in a row that this has happened, that they've added something. So we are now considering it the pattern.
Uh-huh.
3 makes a pattern, Mark.
Yes, I agree.
So is this where this goes? Do we talk about? Last week we talked about it in news when we were like, Wii Sports has been added, but now it's like, is this a new release?
Yeah, I don't feel like it's news
It's not news,
because, like you said, it's a pattern. So
right?
if they just continue to do this, I do feel like new releases is a
It's a good
good
place.
section
It's a
for
good
it.
tidy place for it.
Yeah.
And also because we do these on Tuesday, there's a good chance that we'll be talking about something that like just came out.
Yes. Right.
Although, is it next week or the week after that we're recording news on Sunday and we're gonna miss it?
It's
Next
week.
Next week. So
Well, next week there will be programming note.
yes.
Next week there will be no news.
What a great
because
point.
it's
Yes.
Thanksgiving here in the
Mhm.
US, and so we will be putting out an episode, but it'll be a topic episode. News kind of slows down around this time of year, like we already talked about. So
Yeah.
and
And as you'll be seeing when we get to the news section of this show.
That's right. So yeah, I feel like this is a fine place to do it. And in weeks where we happen to not have a news episode, there'll just be more to talk about when we catch up with news in the future.
Right. For example, here's what it sounds like when we talk about the tracks that were added today. F-Zero X has been added to Nintendo Music. Have you F-Zero music in general has a sort of like I don't know, like a butt rock Castlevania sort of like feel to me, where there's like a lot of, especially in like the early ones or the GBA ones, where like it's doing that like guitar solo kind of sound, but it's on a 16-bit like sound processor, so it sounds kind of like retro and cool. And I like all of that. As soon as it moves into 64 and they're like using real guitars and like real screamy vocals, I'm out. I do not care for it.
Yeah, I mean, I am like you. I just love the Super Nintendo soundscape with all of its samples and like pigs being stepped on sounding
yep.
noises. But the exactly. But yeah, the outside of that, I also don't know F-Zero that well outside of the Super Nintendo entry.
Well, and I don't know if listeners can remember exactly how you describe the visuals of F-Zero X.
Looking like butt, I think is what I said.
It looks like butt. I would venture to say it also sounds like butt.
It's just a butt-filled game.
It's just, yes, that's right.
So I have no qualms about them releasing one new game soundtrack a week. I think if they can keep that up consistently, that would be great. It does, beg the question how they're choosing these, because
Sure,
why
yes.
F-Zero X? It doesn't seem to tie into anything or anything like that.
Yep.
Also, there are lesser known soundtracks that I would love to see on here, and at the rate of one a week, it's just going to be a very long time before this really gets fleshed out. And I don't ever expect it to be comprehensive, but it would be really nice to have like the Famicom Detective Club games on there. One that comes to mind because I like the soundtrack of Emio a lot, as like just like background like work music, and it would be nice to have it on there.
Yeah, well, like we've seen on the like games that they were teasing, for the future coming to the service. We saw both Wind Waker. I'm pretty sure Wind Waker. I actually, maybe don't quote me on that, but we definitely saw Skyward Sword. And like
that one's gonna be so good.
Skyward Sword is gonna be so good.
Skyward Sword.
And it's just kind of like, I don't know. I wish they would have either like started with more, or that like they would do like 2 a week or like something. This feels too slow to me, because now we just got F-Zero X and I'm like, great, I don't care, / I don't like it. I'm kind of mad now that it's going to come up in when I just hit the Nintendo Selects, right? So like,
well, maybe they'll end up doing something like they've done with the Nintendo Switch Online, where in a future Nintendo Direct,
they drop a lot of
they
them.
drop a bunch of them, where it's like, here's the rare collection, and now a whole bunch of these are here at once.
Yeah.
The part that I think will be interesting to see is like, how long do they maintain this consistency? Because I feel like with the Nintendo Switch Online game libraries, there was a time where there was also a more or less a pattern that you could follow and be like, I think we can expect this to happen. And then, maybe like a year into it, they just kind of stop, and then the updates become more haphazard. And so it'll be with something like the Nintendo Music app where the potential library is so vast. It will be interesting to
Yes.
see what they do to like keep it going. Because also there is a ton, but there is similarly like a finite amount.
Right.
And if they dropped everything at once, then there's nothing to be added except new games. But
Right, but
there are also
yes.
like hundreds and hundreds of games that could be on there.
Totally, and like a lot of them are NES games, and like I don't really need to hear,
Clue Land.
I don't need Clue Land or like the soundtrack to like tennis on like
Right.
Game Boy. Like I don't need that. But yeah, I mean, worth mentioning that when the NES library launched, it launched with like 20 games. 20 games exactly. And then did like 3 more in October, 3 more in November, 3 more in December, 2 more in January, 2 more in February, 4 more, I guess, in March. So like they were on like a monthly like release of just like putting more NES games out. So like yeah, they absolutely started that with like a very regular cadence of release, and obviously that changed after some time.
Yep. On to other new releases.
Yes, games even.
Today, November 19th, Stray is released on Switch.
This is the cat in the future city.
Yep. And just like we thought, reviews seem to be that it kind of runs sluggish on Switch. But...
Textures, bad. Lighting, bad.
But it's there.
It's there if you want it.
Stray is there.
Stray is there.
My Sims Cozy Bundle is released today as well. So
is that the physical bundle or?
So My Sims is a spin-off of the Sims series that originally released on the Wii and Nintendo DS.
Yes.
And so this is 2 games, My Sims and My Sims Kingdom, and it's releasing, I think, for the first time on today, like
on Switch. Okay.
Yeah. To tell you how old these games are, other platforms it originally released on include BlackBerry.
Oh,
so so that's My Sims.
That's old, but it's not as old as me applying for a job at Hollywood
yeah,
Video.
That's true.
On like
that's
a
true.
separate personality quiz computer.
That's true. That is true. Then also today, Life is Strange Double Exposure is released on Switch digitally. So this released on PlayStation 5 last month, I believe, and a physical version for Switch is releasing sometime next year. But yesterday there was just a surprise announcement that it is releasing digitally on Switch today.
What's going on there? Why? I don't understand why a game wouldn't have like a sort of like transparent, like obvious release schedule and strategy on Switch in the year of our Lord, the 8th year of the Switch coming,
Yeah,
out.
I think that some of the old ways are dying, where it just doesn't necessarily matter as much anymore in like having a one definitive release date for everything in the way that it used to. Like, I don't really know that it matters. Like, we will talk about Microsoft's Phil Spencer a little bit later, but on Stephen Totillo's Game File, his like Substack, he released an interview he did with Phil Spencer, and they're talking about marketing. And Phil Spencer's like, the old way we used to do it is gone. There is no, it's not like a formula you can follow where it's like, we're going to spend this much on TV, we're going to spend this much on whatever. He's like, you don't know where people are going to learn about your game from influencers, from online, from like, there's no real way to know until it starts happening.
Right.
And I think,
and when it happened, you're not going to know when it, because, like, I think a lot about how, Hogwarts Legacy released on Switch almost like a year later. But like it sells incredibly well on Switch. That's like one of the best selling Switch games. And it's just like, oh yeah, sure. It didn't matter that it came later, or that it performs way worse, just like on a technical level. It's just like on the Switch, which is where people are playing games.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe, I think like a Call of Duty or other big marquee releases like that are still going to have a lot of those very similar big media property marketing beats.
Sure.
But for something like this, yeah, I don't really know that it matters that it's kind of a scattered stealth release type thing.
Sure, that was always going to be its vibe anyway, right? Is like a word of mouth. I mean, like, Life is Strange is a name brand, but it's a pretty small name brand. And the people who know they like it, and the people who don't know they like it can probably be like talked into it 4 or 5 months after it comes out, a year. Like, who knows?
Right. And I also think it's interesting that the split that we just see more and more of on Switch feels like especially of digital and physical.
Yeah.
But even like especially for smaller games, it feels more and more where it's like, oh yeah, digital is out and physical will come out, I don't know, 9 months from now. Like even Marvel versus Capcom, that like collection, that fighting collection, like
that's right.
It's out digitally, but the physical version's
not out yet.
I don't even know if they have a date. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
well, they some generic like next year. But yeah, like, and I wonder if a lot of that just has to do with like keeping things secret, and then like as soon as you announce it, it's like, well, why hang on to it? Like, if it's ready to launch now,
right,
you can do that digitally without the same runway that you need to do it physically.
Right.
And also maybe just like there are weird pipeline things where it's like, oh yeah, like we're lined up to punch out, Switch cards from this factory, but we gotta, wait in line behind, whoever else has the factory booked.
And especially on PlayStation and Microsoft, I guess. But even Nintendo, we see digital sales making up more and more of the pie. Then these physical releases, they feel like, like Blu-ray releases and that sort of thing, where there is an audience for them, but it's becoming a smaller part of the audience. And it's for like collectors,
right?
Not for the general, or like people who purposefully are like, I want to buy things physically. And it's not that those people don't exist. It's that they're becoming a smaller and smaller, like more niche part of it. And so the physical products have started becoming more of like a for fans only, for collectors only type thing, which is how you wound up with
3 copies of Famicom Detective Club.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
I got Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake physically, and partially that was because I've been, buying all this Nintendo stuff from Best Buy. Also, I recently bought an air fryer, so like that was another $300, right? So this is really why I had these like rewards to use at Best Buy, and I was like, oh, if I can get Dragon Quest for like $30, like absolutely. So that is why I did that this time. But yeah, I mean, like things coming out in the like Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. If I get that, I don't have to at this point. But if I do, I'm going to get it digitally.
That's right. You're released.
I'm released
from having to buy it.
That's right.
You
no
have
longer
the
have this
option.
weird curse.
Did the Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake physical version come with
nothing?
Oh, okay.
Came with nothing.
Did they have a special edition that did? Do you know? Or
I don't
was it
know
purely
if they did
just
in the States?
Oh, okay.
Like I saw like photos of some like international releases, or like maybe Japanese releases that had like extra stuff in it, but like it didn't even have anything printed on the inside of the slip sleeve, so yeah, I mean it's a pretty underwhelming presentation, but if now when I finish it I want to lend it to someone, I can, or trade it back into GameStop.
Do it while you still can. Who knows how long GameStops will be around in their current form. That's all the new releases I wanted to talk about. I don't know if there's anything else on here that was of interest to you.
No, nothing else here that is of interest to me. All right, Mark, let's close out this segment. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or a group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, you've posed a question here.
Yes, holiday travel is on my mind, and so I'm wondering, Patrick, when you are traveling somewhere, are you a light packer?
Now, hold
on. Or
are
you a bring everything you might need type of packer?
Okay, so you have posed this question in the context specifically of holiday travel.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Let's leave it there for right now.
Okay.
Because I think there are other
Okay.
kinds of travel
Uh-huh.
where, like, if I'm
a
going
getaway bag.
yeah, like yeah, that's right. Where I just have some cans of peas and a shotgun. But when if I'm going on like vacation or like something a little bit more like relaxing, whatever, I'm more like go with the flow. And if I'm so I bring less. And if I am going on when I travel for like a convention or something, I bring too much stuff because I don't know, like am I going to be going to like a dinner where I have to be nice or where I have to be cool. Like I just bring lots of different clothes. Also, we live in Southern California, so if I'm traveling to a convention or something, it is likely somewhere cold, right?
Right.
So I don't
colder for sure.
Colder for sure. But for holidays specifically, for holiday travel, for Christmas travel, especially if I'm going to be going to a place where it's like home in some regard, I pack light because I'm going to use that washer and dryer.
Will you bring dirty clothes?
No,
with you?
No, I won't.
Okay.
But I will pack for half as many days as I'm going to be there because it's like, who cares? These people don't see my normal like rotation of clothes.
Right.
They can see the same 4 or 3 outfits. If you're living 3 outfits, you're there for a whole week. Like that's fine.
Yeah, I saw some. I can't remember exactly what it was, but some like formula that maybe Wirecutter or something like that recommended when they're like, oh, if you're like packing for a trip, think like 3 or 4 tops to every bottom that you bring.
Sure.
A ratio like that to help you kind of determine how much to bring. So I would say that I used to be a light packer.
Yeah.
Where I'm like making do with very little.
Yes.
But I have kind of swung the other way recently where I, for whatever reason, maybe it's just because if I have the space,
you just keep putting
it in, and I'm like, well, I don't want to make the decision of whether I need this or not.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to bring it. And that's how I, end up bringing enormous, like a comically large suitcase to my parents' house for Thanksgiving. So I'm just like, I just couldn't decide. I just didn't want to decide. So it's all here.
So is that mostly clothes, or is it also like, because I also now like I try to pick a game thing to bring with me and not like everything.
Yeah, it is mostly clothes.
Yeah.
And I think partly the temperature difference does
That'll
as well,
do it,
where I'm like packing for somewhere.
You don't know how to pack for cold.
I don't. So I'm like, I guess because I've become, well, I guess we'll never know.
We will never know. We were accompanied today by and I've got an important announcement to make here. It is by the EBU Euro Radio Orchestra.
Oh, I know where this is going.
For years, I've been calling them the EBU Euradio Orchestra. I just like elided the Euro and radio. I did Euradio because I thought that I was like, that's a cool name, and now I see it's Euro Radio.
As soon as you said Euro Radio,
yes,
I
you
knew
realized that we'd been making a mistake for years.
Yep.
I don't really know how to
my radio? No, your radio.
Your radio. It's like your rail. That's right, or is it Euro Rail?
It's probably Euro Rail. Well, do you know what? We're
not
not responsible for knowing.
No, that's look. We've never made the mistake on the show before, outside of this specific instance where maybe we made the mistake. I don't know. Point is, we were accompanied today by the EBU Euro Radio Orchestra. Mark, let's get into the news. Okay, but it is it's important to point out that it is all one word regardless.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So EURORADIO. Obviously that's Euradio, but as one or Euro Radio.
Well, here's an exciting update.
Okay, great.
Is that it's the Eurail Pass.
Okay.
EURAIL.
Uh-huh.
Formerly known as the Euro Pass or Euro Rail Pass.
Okay.
But not currently known
as
that.
I don't like that we got an answer that I did like, and then you complicated it. Mark, for real this time, let's get into the news.
It's that time of year again. The Game Awards.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
The Game Awards have announced their nominees ahead of the award show on December 12th. And I have a complicated relationship with the Game Awards.
Yeah, sure.
Where it's
said with the tone of like, I haven't talked to my father in 10 years.
On the one hand, I think that it is an interesting talking point, like an interesting thing to discuss. But I also don't value the results of the Game Awards very much.
Or even the ceremony itself, right?
Right.
Like there's a lot around, and we've talked about this in years past, that like it feels very like corporate and mercenary in a way that not even the kind of crasser like Hollywood's award shows are, where like you feel at like the heart of it that there is like there's a Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences that like yes can be swayed by like moneyed interests putting things in front of them that they wouldn't see otherwise, and are a bunch of old white guys making decisions that a bunch of old white guys make, but some of those decisions are being made on like the merit of art, right? And it seems like the Game Awards is just not that.
Well, see, I do think that that's the general like feeling about, or it's definitely the general feeling I have about it, and I think it's a problem of branding and perception or something, because the nominees and even the voting committee are made up of the press, like are made up of gaming press.
Right.
So people who know it, and I mean, maybe they're being swayed. I have no idea what the for your consideration campaigns for these
That's
games.
A great point.
Are
those.
like I have no idea. So maybe companies with large budgets are putting these people up at parties and having them rub shoulders. I really don't know.
We also don't see, well, and it's something that we do see for Hollywood because we live in Los Angeles, that we see like for your consideration billboards,
right?
Where it's like, like, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Smith came out like 10 months ago, and now I'm seeing a billboard for Donald Glover for lead actor for that show, and that's something that you're not going to see in the middle of the country,
right? Yeah, exactly. So but that's where I think that the Game Awards are really interesting, is because Jeff Keighley is the face of it, and the award show itself, which he basically like owns up to, and the fact that it's a giant commercial,
right?
And I don't think he loves getting up there and being like, here's a thing from Taco Bell, but
he still does do it,
but
which is the thing that boggles my mind the most, is like, why are you, and it's because he must like doing it.
I think what he would say is that, and we should see if he'll come on the show to answer. But I think what
Mark pointing to an empty chair.
But I think like I'm Clint Eastwood. But but I think what he would say,
another very old reference,
is that I think what he would say is that that's the only way that this show will get produced and broadcasted.
Sure,
is the because the people who are sponsoring it are not doing it out of love, right? They're doing it to get Taco Bell Baja Blast in front of their target audience as much as possible, and I think that's
insane. The product sells itself,
but I think that's the difference between like the Academy Awards or even something that is like much ickier, which is the Golden Globes.
Yep.
And but they both had this like pretend sheen, and I think it's because they existed for long enough, especially the Academy Awards.
Totally.
They've existed for long enough. Whereas the Game Awards they've grown in a much different culture than either of those award shows.
Like the fact that it's sort of like an outcropping of like the like Spike video game awards, right? That which were obviously way crasser and way more like, I don't even know, everything is brought to you by Doritos, but like, yeah,
Maxim's Game Babe of the Year.
Yep, all of that kind of stuff that like is makes me I just don't want to engage with it
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
And this is obviously not that, but it is still so far from like a thing that seems to have any like artistic or critical merit.
Which is interesting because those awards like do exist, at
Yeah.
the like BAFTA I think does video game
Yep,
awards,
they
which
do.
is like the same um
And it doesn't
organizing body that does, like the British whatever they're called, Olivier Awards or something like that.
right, and like the game developer conference they do.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah, they also do
exactly.
awards.
And like the DICE awards and stuff. So all of those do
Yep.
exist. They're just not publicized in such the same way. And I don't think that they're voted on by the press the same way. But I think all this is to say is that I feel the same way as you, where it just feels really crass.
Yeah.
But
And you and I are sophisticates.
as longtime listeners of the show will for sure
Right.
know.
Right.
Yeah.
We just put in fresh monocles.
But no, it doesn't feel like a celebration of games to me. It feels like a big commercial.
Right.
But I do think that is kind of unfortunate because I think that where it's coming from and like the people who are doing the work to come up with the nominations and voting on it and stuff. And I know they have like audience vote like 10% or whatever it is. But
Get your votes in now.
I feel like it's just like a branding problem for me and not necessarily anything wrong with the substance of the awards themselves.
Yeah, well, and like you said, we listed off all these other like events and awards giving what am I saying? Awards giving bodies that do have a little bit more like prestige to them, but which don't have any kind of attention drawn to them because as the video game playing audience, we are unfortunately drawn to big dumb commercials, right? Like that's what we like. That's all E3 ever was.
Right.
Was like a bunch of commercials to get you excited to spend your money on what these big companies were putting out. And for whatever reason, we were like, yes, please feed me those commercials. And so when the Game Awards comes with the promise of like, who knows, we could reveal a new Smash Brothers character or a Breath of the Wild DLC or a trailer for a Star Wars game that's never going to come out. Like all that kind of stuff. We never see Star Wars Eclipse, right? That game's never coming out.
I don't think that game's ever coming out.
And that's just what we show up for, and that's where the culture is, so that's what the show is.
All that said,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the nominations themselves.
Yes.
So we have the Game of the Year nominations that don't include any Nintendo games.
No Nintendo games.
Which
Fine.
makes sense.
Acceptable, believable, understandable, accurate.
Yeah. Astrobot,
Mm-hmm.
Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor Refantasio.
And of course, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree is the DLC update to Elden Ring, which I believe they like changed their rules around like what does and does not qualify as a game eligible for Game of the Year.
So but the nominations must have already been happening by the time.
What a great point.
So I'm guessing that like press people were reaching out to them being like, can I nominate this?
Yeah.
And so my understanding is that just from what I was reading is that there was nothing that ever said that they could or could not be. And
Sure.
so they posted on the Game Awards, probably in anticipation of this happening, in the FAQ about nominations. They clarified that DLC is eligible. So I don't know that they changed the rules, maybe just added a clarification of something that was unclear beforehand.
Yeah. Well, and like they basically treated Shadow of the Erd Tree as like a Elden Ring, 1.5 or whatever. So it feels fine and like fair play.
Where Nintendo did get nominated,
Ooh.
Best Action/Adventure Game for The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
A game that Marcus put almost an hour into.
Almost. Best Family Game, Princess Peach Showtime, Super Mario Party Jamboree, and The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
Can we pause on this for a second for a couple different reasons? One, I don't like that this has just become the Nintendo category.
Yes, the Best Animated Feature
Yes.
category of the Game Awards, where it's like, well, it looks like something children would enjoy, thus it is a family game.
Right. Further, I don't think that Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is a very good family or kid friendly game. Like, it looks cute and like it's not super challenging, but like, I don't know, you got to do a lot of like abstract thinking and like problem solving and stuff. I'm sure kids can play it, but it doesn't come to my mind immediately as like, this is a kid's game,
Yeah.
or which is kind of what I think family implies.
Yeah.
Also, Princess Peach Showtime.
I know. That was my thought as well.
Like, what's it? I understand that like family game plays by like different metrics, but like, is this best anything? Princess Peach Showtime best something?
No,
I don't
it just
buy
doesn't
it.
feel right. Just doesn't feel right. Best multiplayer game, Super Mario Party Jamboree, and then most anticipated game, which is
Mhm.
definitely a hilarious category, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond.
And maybe this is like the real distinction between the Game Awards and any other any other like award show is you never have like a most anticipated movie.
No, the closest this feels like that we've seen at like the Oscars is when they had that
The Flash entering the
the
Speed Force.
Flash entering the Speed Force. What was that? It was like most like
Yeah, it
like
was like an audience hype moment or something
right,
like that.
yeah, that was voted on by fans. So yeah, most anticipated game, sure.
Is it possible that Metroid Prime 4 has been nominated for most anticipated game in the past?
It feels possible.
Not with this subtitle though.
Maybe in like 2017 when it was first announced. They,
Yeah.
it made the nominations that year if it was a category then. Yeah, game of the year. Patrick, you've played.
I've played two of the games actually nominated for Game
Mhm.
of the Year. I've played Astrobot and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I mean Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was like a religious experience for me. It's my game of the year. Astrobot was super fun and it's like a neat, tidy package. But I got through it in a weekend, you know.
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy VII, I think, was doing and saying much more than almost any other art I took in this year. So, yeah, that would be my vote for Game of the Year is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah, what would be I have not played any of these games.
Right.
But you bring up a good point. What would be like my game of the year?
What would be yours? And if you have a prediction, what do you think will win?
Okay, so I think looking at the actual nominees, I think Balatro is one of those just honored to be nominated type things. I don't think
Sure.
it really has a chance of winning.
It just feels too small scale, even though people put a lot of time into it. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and
it's like
inventive.
it's the indie darling of the nominations.
Right.
I am gonna hazard a guess that Black Myth Wukong will also not win, but it was such a huge financial success
Right.
that it's showing up here makes sense. Elden Tree Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Elden Ring Shadow.
Elden
of the Erd Tree.
Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree. I'm gonna guess will not win. Another like nice to be nominated. I think it's probably between Astrobot, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor ReFantazio, which honestly, I'm like looking at these, just feels what a perfect example of what a weird year for gaming this is.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because in past years, I don't think half of these would be nominated.
Yeah, definitely not. I think it's possible that Astrobot takes it just because like it was like sort of a change of pace from PlayStation. It's a quick, fun, funny game that like everyone could like share their experiences about. Yeah, it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive, which kind of like narrows the band of people who actually played it. But the audience vote counts for so little here. So like if it's all enthusiasts and like press people who had access to it, yeah, I'm sure that my bet is Astrobot takes it.
It'll be interesting because in the Oscars, a lot of times movies about movies do end up doing well, and I wonder
Astrobot is a game about games.
Yeah, so I wonder if that
Yeah.
if that same thing will happen in the Game Awards as well.
It's a love letter to the movie.
Exactly. Jiminy Glick, is that what you were
I
doing?
was kind of doing a Jiminy Click.
Let's see. My game of the year.
Yeah, here we go.
I honestly think it might be Emio.
So speaking of Emio, does it feel at all like a snub that it is not nominated for Best Narrative?
My guess is enough people in the committee, like not enough people in the press who were voting for these things played it
Right.
to even be able to give it a fair
Yes.
shot.
I mean, probably not enough people, period, played Emmy of the Smiling Man. Like,
Right.
I think maybe 8 people played it, and we know half of them. We are a quarter of them.
Um, but yeah, I think, like I of course really liked Luigi's Mansion 2. So much of my gaming is focused on Nintendo
Yes.
that this feels like a foreign country to me.
Mhm.
Like there's so much on here that has just been not it's just not my gaming experience anymore.
Right.
Um
It would be like us weighing in on the German Oscars.
So yeah, but like I think, I really liked Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Like it's not that there were experiences I liked, but really probably the one that I was the most taken with from Nintendo this year
Right.
what ended up being Emio.
It would probably be, if I had to just from Nintendo, it would probably be Echoes of Wisdom for me. But hey, we will have our own award show, the Cardies later this year, counter programming the Game Awards as always. So tune in for that.
Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have just crossed a sales milestone in Japan, as reported by Famitsu, with 8.3 million copies in that country alone. It is now the best-selling Pokemon generation in that region.
Right. So we're just talking about in Japan. Um, uh, the previous record holder was Gen 1, the original Game Boy games.
Amazing.
So this is the first time this record has ever been broken.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's the Scarlet and Violet doing very well.
The international picture is a little bit murkier, but it seems like Scarlet and Violet is the third best-selling overall, behind Sword and Shield at number 2, which, wow, the Switch generation really putting in
Right.
a great showing
And I think
for
that's
Pokemon.
I think that's sort of just the story overall here, because the Switch worldwide is still number 3 console sales behind the DS and PlayStation 2. But I think in Japan it's number 1, right? I guess don't quote me on that. I just know it sells better proportionally in Japan than the rest of the world. So just a bigger install base.
And yeah, but a really good showing for Scarlet and Violet.
Mhm.
The Metal Gear Solid Master Collection got a big 2.0 update last week, adding in additional control options to all versions of the game.
Which is good and exciting. There's just like because the games, we're all it's exciting to have the Metal Gear Solid games on modern consoles. But like a little feature light, even though it's a fun collection of kind of a lot of games. And the fact that there are like new controller options in the Switch version, cool. The other versions got sort of graphical upscaling and resolution boosts for Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. But the Switch version of those will not get those graphical improvements.
Maybe with
Maybe.
backwards compatibility with the Switch 2,
Mhm.
they will sell, like third parties will start selling
Right.
like unlocks to get those up-resed.
Or you maybe just need to buy the
graphics.
Switch 2 version.
Maybe
of
you just
it.
have to buy the Switch 2 version. Yeah.
We don't know what that's going to look like.
In a recent interview with Bloomberg, CEO of Microsoft Gaming Phil Spencer said that there are no, quote, red lines in the Xbox game catalog, and that, at least conceptually, any game they make in the future could come out on Nintendo or PlayStation platforms.
Right. Which feels like where we've been going, right? Or where we've been headed.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily feel like news, but like it is, just something they are continuing to say.
And, we've, of course, seen Microsoft games on Nintendo platforms before this, like, announced change in strategy. But this year, we saw Pentiment and Grounded come to Switch, and then Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves come to PlayStation. Plus, we know Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is coming to PlayStation 5 sometime in the new year. So
pretty early too, right? Like, do we know when? If we don't, that's fine. When the Great Circle comes out on Xbox, I think it's later this month, right?
I think it's later this month. Yeah.
And then that it's out on PlayStation like January or February or something. Like, it's not that big of a window of exclusivity on Xbox platforms.
And we also know that Call of Duty is showing up on Nintendo platforms sooner rather than later. We
Right.
don't know
Not this year.
exactly what's going to happen.
Didn't happen this year.
Didn't happen this year, but as part of the, like grinding gears of Microsoft
Yes.
ingesting Activision Blizzard King, they signed an agreement.
It's like a robot that eats things?
Yeah, they made an agreement
Uh-huh.
with Nintendo to have Call of Duty on Nintendo platforms for 10 years. We don't know when that starts,
Right.
but maybe next year, maybe when on like the Switch 2.
Right. Do you think they can make it just Switch 2, and not like engage the sort of like backwards generation compatibility and just like no. We said Nintendo. We can put it on one. We can't possibly make it work also on OG Switch.
Yeah, I don't think we were. I mean, part of the trial that the FTC, had against Microsoft, this came up. Could you
Right.
put Call of Duty on Switch as it exists today? And Microsoft answers was like, yeah, there's a lot of, like sliders we can engage. Like we could make it, it
Right.
scales.
Which is just the kind of thing you say to make them go,
Yeah,
like, oh,
for
okay,
sure.
all right, yeah.
But no, I don't think they're under any obligation to put it on Switch. We don't know the details of the contract, but no, I expect it to be Switch 2
Sure.
exclusive when that does happen. And then finally, just some anniversaries here. Donkey Kong Country turns 30 this week.
Wow.
It was released on November 21st in North America, 1994. And so I just thought it would be fun to round up every Donkey Kong game missing from Nintendo Switch Online right now.
This is how we celebrate it.
Donkey Kong.
Where you been, Donkey Kong?
Donkey Kong 94 for the Game Boy.
Not on NSO.
Not on NSO. Donkey Kong.
And a real crime. That's one that, why?
Someday.
Why are they putting out
expect.
Game Boy games at all without putting Donkey Kong 94 on in this library?
Right, the proto version of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, essentially.
Yep.
The Donkey Kong Land games that were released for the Game Boy.
I'm fine with this. I don't need these. Keep those in the kitchen.
Yeah, I bought them.
I don't need it.
I bought them for.
Did you buy all three of them?
On the Nintendo 3DS.
Yeah.
On the eShop, I did, and then I remember trying to play the first one, and it's bad.
It's rough. Yeah,
they're really bad.
It doesn't make sense.
Diddy Kong Racing, of course.
Yep.
Donkey Kong 64 still missing.
Right.
Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color, and then Country 2 and Country 3 for the Game Boy Advance. Those versions, I do hope someday get ported over. They're different enough that I think it would be interesting to see.
And Donkey Kong Country 3 for the GBA even has a different soundtrack to it. So it's another and maybe that just gets added to the Nintendo Switch.
Ooh, that'd be fun. I would love that.
That would
DK King of Swing
mentioned earlier in this very episode.
And then of course Mario vs. Donkey Kong, but there's a remake for that, so I don't know the
right, and then like a million minis games.
Yeah.
Also Jungle Beat.
That's right. Oh, but there's no NSO library. That's why I didn't include it. Because there's no NSO library that would have the GameCube game.
No NSO library yet.
That's right. And then also yesterday, November 8th.
Sorry, I just want to because the other reason that like Donkey Kong would be like in the whatever right now is we got this land opening up in Japan.
Yeah, December 11th
at the Universal Studios. And the Donkey Kong Country Returns HD coming out in January. So like there's sort of stuff, but like no new games.
Yep.
And a lot of old games missing.
And then other kind of notable dates. Yesterday, November 18th, was the 23rd anniversary of the GameCube and the 12th anniversary of the Wii U launching in North America.
Wow. Which started my every morning habit of driving to two different Best Buys, two different Targets, and a Toys R Us looking for Wiis. I did this for like 3 weeks.
Looking for Wiis?
Yeah.
Oh, but this was the Wii U.
Oh, the Wii U. Never mind. I didn't do that. Never mind. I misunderstood.
Yeah, but when we're in the holiday season, like there's lots of these anniversaries of things releasing, especially now that we're kind of close to Black Friday and all that.
Okay, so now let me cast to the launch of the Wii U. I was not thinking about buying it. It's like 8 months later when Mario Kart was coming out, where I was like, oh, maybe I should finally get one of
Yeah.
these. Yeah.
Finally, we mentioned it earlier, but just a reminder that a reminder of something that we talked about 20 minutes ago.
They might have forgotten.
No news episode next week.
I wonder. There must be a kind of listener that skips 433, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So we should be covering it here. There's no news episode next week. We will be releasing an episode on Tuesday, right?
I think that's the plan.
That is a fun topic that we have planned, but it'll just be the sole episode that we put out next week.
That's right.
All right, Mark. Let's close this out. That is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you're not in our Discord, you should be. Email us, nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. And I will send you an invitation. You can jump in there and talk Nintendo with a bunch of other people who like doing just that. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.